hate most people. I want to earn enough money I can get away from everyone.
These lines sum up very well why There Will Be Blood is a story of self-destruction as opposed to one of success. With many characters we see in movies, it becomes clear within the first few appearances that their destiny will derail into chaos. But here that is not the case. Around the 15-minute mark, our protagonist Daniel Plainview has already improved his life dramatically. After witnessing a few moments of his story, we see why he's such a rough man. He developed a limp after breaking his leg while looking for silver and gold. He saw a man die right next to him in the bottom of a hole while drilling oil. This same man had a son named H.W., which he would bring to the job. And after he died, Daniel took it upon himself to take care of the child. So it's clear that his environment molded his harsh persona. The thing that stands out the most in the middle of all his hardships is how alone these first 15 minutes feel. So much so that he barely speaks at all throughout the whole sequence. Even when he is around people, we don't see any meaningful interaction. That doesn't stop him from taking in H.W. The motivation here could be a couple of things. The most obvious is that he is going to use the kid to pass the appearance of a family man. But I believe that there is another reason as well. He does it for the sense of superiority he gets out of it. Something similar happens when he tells the dad of a little girl from who he has bought some land to stop beating her, so later he can rub it in his face to show how lucky she is that he came around. With all that said, let's go back to my first point about his downfall not being obvious. Daniel is prospering. However hard it must have been to take care of H.W. on his own, he did it. He now drives a car and wears a suit while traveling with his boy looking for oil. Even though he hasn't achieved everything he wants, Daniel's on the right path. If he just stays patient and consistent, he has the potential to live a wealthy and happy life. But we only think that way because of our lack of knowledge of the characters so far. And I think Paul Thomas Anderson, the director and writer of the movie, makes a great choice by giving us some hope that Daniel's journey could be prosperous. It only makes the contrast with his eventual demise even greater. So far, we see how his upbringing made him a rough individual. Now let's take a look at the traumas he experienced that sent him even faster into a downward spiral. I can think of two. The first is H.W.'s accident. The boy hits his head after an explosion at one of his drilling wells and ends up deaf. Daniel's efforts to take care of him are very minimal, mostly trying to use his money to appease the situation. The moments he actually has to do something himself are disgraceful, to say the least. So after not being able to take the boy's inability to communicate and his rebellious behavior, Daniel sends him away, showing how little he cares for people. At the first sign of distress of his own interests, his first solution is to cut ties. But is the moment right after the explosion that shows us without a shadow of a doubt who Daniel really is.
H.W. okay?
No, he isn't.
Here, it becomes clear to us that any hope we might have had about a possibility of happiness in his life was delusional. Combining his most successful moment and the greatest tragedy to happen to a person close to him was a great directorial decision. However, even if H.W. didn't suffer that accident, it's clear that at some point in his life, Daniel would push him away somehow. Since self-sabotage is such a strong part of his nature, the second moment that solidifies even more of the bad characteristics of Daniel's personality is the arrival of his brother Henry, more specifically when he finds out that the man isn't who he says he is. This following scene is one of my favorite representations of Daniel Day-Lewis's incredible performance. Paul Thomas Anderson makes this sequence amazing by letting one simple factor unfold: reaction. To set the stage, Daniel is on the beach with his alleged brother Henry, the only character to whom he has shown some sort of connection besides H.W. Daniel is talking about his hometown and makes a reference to a place.
Take him to the Peachtree Dance.
He gets no reaction out of the man, so he repeats himself.
I say get liquored up and take him to the Peachtree Dance.
And the reaction this time is not the one he was expecting.
Yeah.
A person who had known that place would have had a different reaction than the one he did, and with that, We see, without any words being spoken, how Daniel realizes that the man is not his brother. That moment relies simply on context and the expressions of the actors. There was no need for expository dialogue, no need to explain about the place Daniel is talking about. The whole thing unfolded perfectly with the use of reactions. Continuing on the topic of showing and not telling, in the acting of Daniel Day-Lewis, there are many moments like that. A lot of times it feels like he is a pressure cooker about to blow up. His stares and his demeanor show us that inside his mind, he's probably torturing whoever is bothering him. There's a constant feeling that he's holding himself back to not kill someone that's in his way. And it turns out that this really happens. But before we talk about it, let's see the instances of the hate outbursts Daniel has. When negotiating land with some men, one of them mentions that the buyout of his lands would give him time to take care of his boy. That enrages Daniel to the point of threatening to kill the man. Despite the scene I've shown earlier, exemplifying that he doesn't care about anything more than his accomplishments, he's actually heavily bothered by the judgment of others. Which reinforces my point from before about him liking the feeling of superiority. Next, we get into his 2 kills. The first is after finding out that the man who claims to be his brother Henry has been deceiving him. But on this occasion, it's not his rage that takes over. On the contrary, he is really calculated this time as he interrogates the man while waking him up in the middle of the night. After the confirmation, Daniel shoots him in the head really up close. We see right away that his death takes a heavy toll on him, since the prospect of having a family member to help out is something he really cherished. So much so that the scene that started this video is the only time that Daniel opens himself up, and the reason for it is simple. He felt comfortable because it was his own blood, as he says.
Well, if it's in me, it's in you.
So he had no shame admitting his darkness, since in his mind it was shared by Henry, justifying even more how betrayed Daniel felt. The second kill is the perfect representation of the metaphor I made earlier about blowing up. Eli is a preacher, son of the men from whom he buys the land that made him rich. Throughout the movie, the two interact in a way where they are always trying to take advantage and expose the flaws of each other. It's safe to say that Eli is the person Daniel hates the most. In the final sequence, Daniel is hungover, sleeping on the floor of his bowling alley in his mansion, as Eli shows up to pay him a visit. Seeing that the priest came to ask him for a favor, he decides to pay him back by humiliating him as revenge for what Eli did to him in the past. After that comes the culmination of what the movie had built up all along. The release of Daniel's urges, that hatred he had been holding back this whole time in order to achieve what he wanted. And now that he has everything, he completes the cycle of self-destruction by losing it all, as he bashes Eli's head in with a bowling pin.
I'm finished.
These twisted characters are really fun to talk about. Do you think I'm crazy for thinking Daniel had a faint hope of being happy? Leave a comment below, and if you like this video format, check out some of my other character analysis. In the last video, I talked about another heavily damaged character, Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, and how his loneliness was a big catalyst of his destructive behavior.